Hi, I'm Erin Marcus, former corporate executive turned entrepreneur and founder and CEO of Conquer Your Business. Welcome to the Ready Yet podcast. We're excited to bring you more than 100 episodes of interviews and insights designed to help entrepreneurs get the financial and emotional freedom they need in order to build a business and a life they're proud of. All right. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Ready Yet podcast. I always like to tell you guys what I'm excited about. I am excited about today's guest because he has basically perfected and made accessible the piece of the speaking business that is the bane of my existence, right? Like the part that I just couldn't handle. Because of the routine needed, the detail needed. It's because of me, okay? Not because there's anything wrong with the product. It's me. I couldn't do it. So before we get into the details of what that is and how it's gonna, I have so many questions for you. But Ron Story Jr., why don't you give everybody a little official introduction to who you are and what you do?
Well, I mean, I'm the guy who takes away the pain, right?
Yes.
There you go.
There you
So
go.
in 2023, we sent almost 500,000 pitches for podcast speaking gigs just on that side of the business for consulting, speaking, podcast guesting, corporate consulting, any of that. We sent almost 500,000 emails, booking close to 10,000 opportunities. And this is not including the people who use our software. All the data comes from our software, but this was just my team manually sending these emails. So I know a little bit
So
about
if
pitching.
you know me like this much, you can understand now why I couldn't do that. I
Yeah,
can't handle it. I can't.
yeah,
It is what it is.
but
Know what you're good at,
that's
know
what
what
we
you're
do.
bad at.
Yeah, so I mean, I have a little bit of history to add some context. I know a lot of people. I always love to meet with clients, and they say, "Oh yeah, cold pitching doesn't work." And I say, "Well, how many did you send?" "Oh, I sent like 300." I'm like, "Yeah, that's why it doesn't work, right?"
Right.
So I'm a firm believer that you have to do enough for long enough, and that's what I teach our clients to do, and that's what I like to help other people do.
All right. So when you and I met, and you have a platform that does this that is absolutely amazing. And I have questions like on the positive and negative side. So setting the stage with the fact that I believe if you are a thought leader in any way, and most solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, small business owners really benefit from approaching their marketing as a thought leader. And to me, speaking is just an absolute amazing way to reach an audience, not just paid speaking, but free speak. Like there's so much you can do with that, right? It's the primary way I've grown my business, 2 different businesses now. The problem was getting booked. It was, you had to find the gigs. You had to find the person to talk to. I'm telling you, back, not so long ago, I would spend my evenings looking up who was the current vice president of 200 different chapters of Women's Council of Realtors.
Yep, I know what that feels like.
Again, this is why I couldn't keep with it, right? And so tell us a little bit about how you have solved this data problem, because that's really what it is, right?
Yep.
Ultimately, at the front end, it's a data problem.
Yeah, it's a huge data problem. So I come from the world of cold calling. So I spent the first 12 years of my life as a financial advisor that was just on the phones all day. Now, this was before the internet, like was popular. So I started as a financial advisor in May of 2000. So all we did was cold call. There was no cold email. There was no way
No,
to scrape data from online. LinkedIn wasn't
I
even
left that
invented.
world in 2000, so I
Yeah, so you
totally,
understand.
I
So
get it.
there was no LinkedIn, there was no Facebook, none of
No,
that existed, right? So nowadays there is LinkedIn, there are data centers, there are different places where you can buy data. And I spent from 2012 to 2018 doing sales consulting for software companies. And they have these things called growth hackers. And the growth hacker is the person who's figured out like not a white hat way to do it and not a black hat way to do it, kind of in the
agree.
middle. You kind of in the gray, right? And I was that gray hat dude. And I used to tell all the guys, I said, look, I can't code, but you can't sell. So we need each other, right? If you're going to grow the business, you're going to have to learn how to sell. And if I'm going to grow my business, I need to find people that can't sell and help them. So I, coming from that world, I learned a lot about cold email. And cold email is just like cold calling, but it's via email. So
Mhm.
you find the emails of strangers and you reach out to them and you say, hey, I'm in this business, you're in this business. Can we help you to solve this problem? Well, most consumers would call that spam,
Right.
right? Because on a person to person basis, on a consumer basis, it's illegal,
Right.
right? But on a B2B basis, it's totally legal and it's done all the time, right? It's like there's a do not call list for consumers, but there's no do not call list for businesses, right?
Right.
So you can email businesses, and I would say 80% of all selling that's done on an enterprise level is done via email, right? So I took those skills, and one of my friends, she said, hey, I'm a John Maxwell speaker.
Mhm.
Can you get me booked for gigs? And I'm like, I probably can. Let me try it. It's just an email. I can get you the meeting. So
Right.
we started sending emails for the meetings. And she was like, holy crap, this is working. Like, you should do this for other people. I'm like, no, I don't want to do this. This is too easy. Like, like nobody will pay for this. Like the sales companies, they pay for it because these software companies, they have venture capital and all of this. I'm thinking a one person speaker ain't gonna pay me a lot of money to do this hard work, right?
Little did
So,
you
but
know, there's this whole economy, right?
exactly. So I found this little niche of people that I could help who didn't want to sell, who didn't have the time because they were working
Right.
full-time jobs and they're part-time speakers a lot of times and they're just getting started or they're doing consulting on the side. So they needed this service. And I went out and I started gathering data and I found this company online. I went to sign up for it to get some data from them and it gave me an error. So I contacted the person. I said, hey, I got an error when I signed up. I really want to use your data. And he says, man, I shut the company down. I'm a developer. I can't sell. You know, I just shut it down. I don't even use it anymore. And I'm like, yo, you want to sell it to me? I can help you make a sale. Sell me the company. So on January 7th of 2018, I actually bought the company that I run today. And it was just a set of 258 million emails that
Oh,
were directly linked to people's LinkedIn. Now,
mm.
let me ask you a quick question. When was the last time that you've updated your LinkedIn profile?
This year, I'm due to
But
do, I do it about every 6 months.
exactly. So people constantly update
Yeah.
their LinkedIn profile.
Yes,
Here's
it's
the,
current.
here's the magic question. When was the last time you changed your login email address on your LinkedIn?
I don't even know what it is.
Exactly. So we have the correct email.
I
We
don't even
have
know
people's
what that
correct email.
is. Right.
And then
It's
they
the
go,
computer. Thank God the internet browser remembers it because I don't. Right.
exactly. So our data is current because people update their LinkedIn, but they never change the email address,
Mm.
right? So we use LinkedIn to search and find the people. We use some software to scrape the URLs, and then we just cross-reference it to our database, and that's how we built PitchDB. So we looked up all the event organizers, podcast hosts, all of that, scraped their URLs off of LinkedIn, and put it into PitchDB, and that's how we built our database of 3.7 million contacts.
Which is insanity.
Yeah, it's a lot.
So it's a lot. Well, and here's the thing. One of the things I've learned is the numbers are a lot, but when you create the process and the process is automated using technology, the numbers are almost irrelevant because once the process works, it works.
Exactly. So we have 3.4 million podcasts, but we've cataloged over 178 million episodes, right? So once we go in and we know your website for your podcast, now we can grab your RSS feed and pull all of your podcast data into our software in order to be able to display that accurately. So we get real-time updates. So when you update your podcast, it updates our software automatically, right?
So
So
that's the tech
that's the work
side,
that we've done.
which is like amazing. And for those of us who used to, like I said, had to do this during watching movies at night, like the tech side is amazing. But let's get to the sales side, because I know
Yep.
that's your, like the tech, I get the feeling the tech side you learned, the sales
Mhm.
side, you know, right? You learned the tech side because you
Exactly.
had to do that. How does one of the things you and I agreed on right when we first chatted, as a podcast host,
Mhm.
I get pitched every day. I get pitched
Yep.
every day for guests. And the mistake that I watch them make is they send me a book about how wonderful their guest is. I've never read. I've never read any of them. I have no attention span. I have no time. I don't read any of those. How has your sales experience now taken what was a database that most people really wouldn't know how to use,
Yep.
or they would use it poorly, and made it something that is of value, of benefit to a consultant who also speaks to the people who use that database?
Yep. So the one thing that I know that every human has experienced, at least 99.7% of humans have experienced, is dating. Either you've been on the receiving end of being asked out,
Receiving
or
end of
you've,
dating.
yeah, exactly. Like you've been asked out or you've asked somebody out,
Yes.
right? So even though we sell B2B and B2C, all sales interactions are P2P, person to person, right?
Yes.
So if we go back to the natural human interaction of dating, imagine if someone came up to you and they said, "Hey, Erin, let me tell you about my last 5 girlfriends. And
Right.
this is why it worked. And I got a divorce for this reason, but this, blah, blah, blah. But I think you and I will be like this in 5 years." You'll be like, "Dude, you're a weirdo. I don't even know your name. Like,
Right.
why are you telling me all of this?" But that's what their pitches are. "I've been on this stage, I've done this, I've been on this podcast, and you would love me
Look at
because,"
how
and it's like,
great I am. Look at how, right? Like if you're in a bar and someone walks up to you and goes into a monologue of how amazing they are, that's
yeah,
basically what people are doing to me all day long.
100%. In which they should just reach out to you and say, "Hey, I love the podcast. Are you still looking for guests?
Right.
Hey, are you single?" That's all you ask.
That's all right. Let's
Hey,
start
are
with
you
the
single?
basics.
Yeah. If she points to her ring, just turn
Go.
around and move on. She's married. Move on. Right. But you just ask, "Hey, are you single?" And if she says, "Yes, I'm single," cool. Now you tell them why you would be a great guest on their podcast. But if they're not looking for interesting guests, then move on with your life.
Yes.
Right. So I see a lot of people, they invest too much into pitching. They want to write the perfect pitch for the perfect podcast. I've never seen one podcast make or break anybody's career. So it's going to be, you got to do hundreds of them anyway. You got to go on a lot of podcasts. But people think if I get on this one thing, it's going to change my life. You're already screwed just with that mentality,
Well, and I
right?
had that same realization in my last business when it came to sales, because almost accidentally, I, due to just some rapport that a woman and I had during a consultation, I started my sales conversation that time with, "All right, so what's going on?" And she told me, and we had this amazing conversation. Instead of me all up in my head trying to come up with the exact perfect thing to say to somebody to get them to buy something from me, it just doesn't work that way. And it's
Exactly.
also such a stress reliever to know that it doesn't work that way.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I think that that's the thing that most people miss. Imagine if a person, go back to dating, you walk up to someone and you tell them all the details. "Hey, I know you live here, and here's the car you drive,
But
and here are your kids' names." You're a
now they're
stalker.
not just walking away, now they're calling the police.
Yeah, yeah, you're a stalker, right? But that's how much invested people have in trying to get on the perfect podcast. Don't be a weirdo. Realize there are other women in the bar.
I
There are
tell
other
people,
women in
like,
the
if you
bar.
just don't be a weirdo, you'll
Yeah,
be fine.
100%. And know that, somebody will love you eventually, right? So you just keep shooting your shot. That's how life works.
All right.
I'm sorry to be crude. It's
It's
the
so true.
facts.
But okay, so let's take this to the extreme then.
Mhm.
If all you are doing is an opening line and you've got to shoot your shot like a million times, how do you stand out in a world of AI where everyone is more and more and more looking the same.
Well, I think the thing is, if you do interesting things, you'll be interesting, right? Most people haven't done anything interesting, but they want to sound interesting. It's like, just be cool and you'll be cool, right?
Again, it goes
So
back to just don't be a weirdo.
yeah, exactly, right? I remember when I was in high school, and one of my friends, he would go shoot a shot at a young lady, and she would shut him down. He would say, "Man, if I would have worn my cologne, I would have got her."
And you're
Right?
thinking,
Nah, bro.
this failed way before then. Right?
Yeah, like you need to work on your personality. It has nothing to do with your cologne, bro. You know? So most people are looking for the perfect pickup line of what to say in the email. So
Yeah.
they're kind of treating the email pitch as the pickup line. You know, roses are red, violets are blue. You must have fell out of heaven because I love you. Don't
Right.
say that, right? So, but that's what they're looking for. So the key is just understand, go in with an abundance mentality that there are 3.4 million podcasts, right? Some of them hate looking for guests. That's the bane of their
Right.
existence. They're like, I got to spend 2 hours vetting someone on LinkedIn, looking through all of their stuff, listening to old episodes, making sure that they're not going to come on and embarrass me on my show. If someone reasonable just reached out to me, that would save me 3 hours this week, right? So you pitch for engagement, and then when they reply and say, "Yeah, who'd you have in mind?" Give them a couple quick sentences with a couple links to podcasts you've already been on, and then they'll find out if you're interesting or not, right? And then you'll be surprised. You'll get a lot more bookings versus trying to find the perfect podcast that has the perfect audience. You're probably not going to get on them, right? If I pitch Joe Rogan, I'm not getting on there because even though he interviews people, he books his own guests. Jamie is looking for his own people. So you can send them all the emails you want. They ain't answer it, right? But here's the one thing I know. I can go on a podcast with 0 followers, right? With 0 downloads and still get in front of 30,000 of my true customers, even though that podcast has 0 followers. Think about that. A podcast with 0 followers, I can still get in front of 20,000 of my own ideal customers with it. You know how I do that? Because it's not the podcaster's job to promote me.
Right.
When I go on that person's show, they've recorded the content, they've edited it, they've put it out. I'm going to promote myself, right? So I'm going to take that YouTube video, I'm going to run $200 worth of ads to it. That podcast is going to think I'm the greatest guest ever because he's like, dude, we put out your episode. Yours blew up.
So let's go. When you told me that, and I'm a pretty decent marketer, but when you told me that, I'm like, that is genius. So tactical takeaway right here. Do that step by step.
All right. So most podcasts, if they're recording like we're recording here on Zoom, they're going to put it on YouTube, right?
Right.
YouTube
And
has
this
a
will
thing
be
called,
on YouTube.
and when someone sees it, they're going to see it has thousands of views because I'm going to run ads to it regardless, whether you want me to or not. You can't stop me. That's the beauty of it. Like LinkedIn will I mean, not LinkedIn, YouTube would allow you to run ads to any YouTube video.
You don't have to own the video. It doesn't
You don't,
like, do you realize that you can run an ad to a video that is not on your channel?
yeah, because YouTube is thinking
It's just the URL.
only an insane person would
Name
run
Ron.
yeah, only an insane person would run ads to a video that they don't want people to see. So if you want people to see it, you would run ads to it. So all the YouTube videos are has the ability for you to turn it into an ad, right? So when Erin posts this, I'm going to take the link and I'm going to run ads to it. And I'm going to pick my target audience, right? And I'm going to find them all over the world. And I'm going to say the people that want to do this thing. And then YouTube only charges me if they watch 30 seconds of it, right? So my average podcast view on YouTube, my average watch time is 22 minutes and 31 seconds, right? That's on an ad. So I put the whole hour in there as the ad, and they never click off. And they just keep watching it for 22 minutes and 31 seconds. That's my average. Now I may be able to get that larger as I get better at, and I keep doing more podcasts.
You're
But
still way ahead of the curve here.
yeah,
For
20.
22 minutes.
Hey man, I get someone to watch a
Nothing to
22
be
minute
ashamed
ad.
of.
Yeah, that's an infomercial on television, right? That's a Ginsu knife
Right.
infomercial, 22 minutes, right?
That's
So
somebody's commute, right?
exactly. So, but that's what we're doing. That's exactly what we're doing. That's how you can drive views to your audience, regardless of the audience of the podcaster. So to me, I go on any podcast. I don't care.
I do
They
the
can talk about
same
anything.
thing. I do the same thing because I don't, just to your point, most of the podcasts that I'm on, we do at least as much, if not more, to market that podcast as the host.
Yep, exactly. And I mean, somebody, it may be a podcast on basketball. Somebody who's watching basketball is a public speaker that wants to be on podcast. Somebody who's listening to that basketball podcast, they want to be interviewed on other podcasts. So my audience is everywhere. Put me on. Put me in, coach. I'm ready to play. I don't care what podcast you put me on. I'm going.
Well, and so one of the things you're illustrating here without saying it, find a way.
Yeah.
Like, I think so many people don't get to where they want to be because of how fast they stop. Do you
Mm-hmm.
think for 1 minute I wanted to spend my evenings looking up the email addresses because it changes every year of the vice president, right? I mean, but did I want it or did I not want it?
Exactly. So here's what we've built. And this is how I like to describe my company, PitchDB. Our company is built for self-promoters. If you're looking for an agent to promote you, don't use our software. It's not built for you, right? Because it requires you to get in and actually send some pitches. But if you're a self-promoter and you're saying, look, I'm not waiting to be chosen, I'm going to choose myself. Our software is exactly for you because we're going to give you all the data you need in order to promote yourself. Now, in today's society, the word self-promoter has a bad connotation. But in reality, if you look at all of the richest people on earth, they're all the best self-promoters. Elon Musk, Donald Trump,
Taylor
everybody that's out
Swift,
there.
right? I mean, look at Jason and Travis Kelce. That's all they do
That's it.
because they know you're only going to play football for so long.
Exactly. Right. So, you know, what Taylor Swift, yeah, like they're self-promoters. So I'm not waiting on someone to come down to Colombia where I live and knock on my door and say in Spanish, ¿Quieres ser famosa? No, I don't want to be famous. I'm not waiting on that.
Right? What do you want and how bad do you want it? And I think
Yeah.
there's, and but when you combine that with where we started the conversation, you didn't say be fake, you said be interesting.
Mhm.
Right? And I think that's where people also get stuck. You don't have to be anyone but you. Be interesting. That was when I first started professional speaking, that was one of the best pieces of advice that my mentor gave me was like, be interesting, don't be boring. Now, you don't have to be nuts. Most people are interesting if they learned how to share their stories.
I think everybody is interesting to somebody,
Yeah.
right? So someone who, like I mentioned, I live down in Medellin, Colombia. Somebody who's listening to this is going to say, oh, Medellin,
Wait a
I always wanted to go
minute.
to Medellin,
Right.
right? And then they're going to look me up and they're going to see a lot of my podcasts talk about me being in Medellin on travel podcast, right? So being interesting is just being yourself because there's a tribe of people who are just like you, who are just looking for a leader, right? One guy said that everybody is like Avatar. They're looking for someone to plug their tail into, right? And I thought that was incredible, right? And I think that that's just be yourself, tell your story. I'm a black kid from a poor city, the murder capital of the US, right? East St. Louis,
I was gonna
Illinois.
say it's East St. Louis or
Yeah,
Detroit.
yeah. I mean, that's
Right.
it was for 20 years. We were the murder capital of the
I
and
know
St. Louis.
I was in college in central Illinois during that time, and we would go down to St. Louis to listen to the blues clubs. And
Yeah. So how does a kid from there end up in the cocaine capital of the world, down in Medellin, right?
well,
The head
that
of
one not a
narcos.
far stretch. Like that one I got. That one
But
I
but
got. But
but
not
yeah, we
to
get it,
right.
right? So it's one of those things where it's like, oh, that's interesting. How does a guy who didn't speak Spanish go to Medellin and build a startup.
And
It's
build
like,
a
holy crap.
startup to help speakers in the United, like, yeah, I mean, so, okay, so more of the origin story. How does, because one of the things that I know is it's hard for people to see what's possible beyond what they see.
Mhm.
Right? It is, it's, you're up against neuroscience. It's
100%.
representation matters because it's very, very hard for anyone to imagine anything that's beyond anything that they've experienced. Why would you?
Mhm.
Right. So, okay. So how did this happen?
So
Explain
again, I was
further.
born and raised in East St. Louis, and I'm 5'6" with 4-inch heels on, right?
You and me both. You got two,
So
two inches on me.
I'm a short dude. So my basketball and baseball career weren't
It
gonna,
was over before they happened, right?
yeah, they weren't gonna take me. But East St. Louis is known for having great athletes and great musicians.
Boxers.
Miles Davis, great Olympians, Jackie Joyner Kersey. These are great people from East St. Louis. But I was just really smart. And I'm like, I can't do any of that stuff, but I can think. So I'll go into business, right? So, that's where I'm from. I had an opportunity. One of my great friends, he's like a brother to me, got a job as the principal at the largest school in Columbia. And I said, yo, I'm going to come down and visit. I came down and visited. And, 7 years later, 2 kids later, I'm here. This is home. This is how I ended up here. 17 employees in our company. They're all here in Colombia and in Venezuela. And yeah, so I mean, that's how I ended up here. It was just a dream. A kid that I don't know how to code, but I built a pretty decent software company. So whoever's listening to this, you talked about having the vision. Look, just have the vision and go and work on it. And you'll be surprised how many people say, yo, I can code, but I can't sell. So I'll come work for you. If you can sell it, I'll code it for you. There you go. That's how I ended up here running this company.
Well, and it's so true. It's find the way. I think that, and I don't know that we're doing the next generations any service by this whole instant gratification or give up, instant gratification or give up.
But I think that's always been there. I think that there's been instant gratification or give up in every generation, right? I think it's a bit more instantaneous now, but it's always been there, right? But also the ability to have success has been, the window for that is shortened also, right? So, both of them we've kind of condensed time a bit on
Yeah.
success and failure. And I think, the people who can play the longest game will always win, right? So I want to play an infinite game. Like in a relationship, we started off talking about relationships. How do you win at marriage? You, there's no winner and loser. You keep it going, right? How do you win at business? You don't one day say I won at business. No, you want the business to keep going. The business, you want it to be
That was
infinite.
one of the I very much believe like words matter, how we talk to ourselves matter. And one of the things that I have removed from my vocabulary is needing to fix something. I don't have to fix my mindset. I don't have to fix my calendar. I don't have to fix, because as soon as I start talking about needing to fix it, I think that there's some magical date at which it'll just work and never be a problem again. And
No,
that's not how this, it
no.
doesn't really work that way. I just have to manage it and stay on top of it.
Mhm. Yeah, it's an infinite game that you
Yeah.
just want to stay in until you decide to sell the business or until you decide to get a divorce or whatever. But there's no winners and losers, right? You're just in it together. You're playing the game, right? And I think if most people treated their business as an infinite game, something that they're committed to for the next 10 to 15 years, their approach would be different. Like if I
Yeah.
knew I was going to be doing this for the next 15 years, wouldn't it make sense for me to take 2 years to get it right?
Yes.
Right? Like but if I'm trying to, I got to hit $18 million this year in my first 12 months. Well, dude, I don't have any time to get it right. So I'm going to go and try to promote a bunch of junk
Yes.
and it's going to be a bigger failure. So if I give myself a longer time horizon, I got the time to make it better and then the time to launch in stages and to build a sustainable business. it ain't about winning, it's about surviving.
Well, and I think that is going back to the instant gratification, but also marketing. And marketing's not wrong. We all have to do it, self-promotion. You have to market your business.
Mhm.
But Instagram would have us believing overnight success.
Yeah,
And not
but I think,
necessarily even intentionally.
but we're all adults here. Like
You
everybody who's
would
listening to
you
you,
would think.
yeah, but here's what I'll say. And this is my reality check that I gave myself. Like, look, this dude's 22 and he's claiming he made $1 million as a life coach. I don't believe him. He ain't lived enough life,
Well, and that's
right?
my thing. As soon as somebody starts to say, just do this one thing, just do this one thing, and your business $1 million.
Well,
I
my,
don't
my
know
mom,
anybody whose business works because they just did this one thing and it's a LinkedIn Autobot. But
my
that's why they
mom,
made $1 million.
when I was a kid, my mom told me this. He says, if your friends ever say this to you, all you got to do is, says, the minute they say that, y'all going to jail. All you got to do is, he says, y'all going to jail. Just know that. Just remember when you hear, all you got to do is, y'all probably going to jail if you do it. And that stuck with me forever. Like, you know what?
Right. And I think, I'm a big fan of like, don't just listen to what you are telling people and the product that you offer, but look at what you're modeling, right? It's the work ethic, it's the understanding a market need and then how to fill it. It's doing it right instead of, sacrificing, quote unquote, because it isn't a sacrifice because it doesn't even work that way, sacrificing a short-term potential for true long-term.
Here's the best analogy. Your business is a child, right?
And
I have a
everybody
2 year
thinks
old.
their baby is so cute, right?
100%. I got a 2 year old. And because she doesn't know calculus right now at 2 years old, I don't call her stupid.
Right.
Right. And parenting never stops. I'm going to parent this child until I'm dead. Even when she's 40 and I'm 65 or whatever, however old I'll be, she'll still be my baby and I'll still be taking care of her and fixing things and maintaining our dad-daughter relationship. If you treat your business that way, instead of saying, I'm going to give birth to a child and send them to college within the first 6 months, even before they walk, your perspective will be better and it'll be a better child. You'll raise a business that will actually benefit society. I mean, the analogy is perfect.
Yes.
Like, give it 18 years to figure it out, right? Okay, watch this. Let's say you give me an outrageous number that you would do in the first 12 months of starting a new business. An outrageous number. Pick a number.
Oh, people are always talking about that $1 million or I mean, they're always talking first year $1 million. It's
Yeah,
just,
okay. So you do $1 million in the first year. Okay. Apple did $1 billion today. You're still a baby business.
it's
So
still,
who cares? Ain't no trophy for that. So once you realize there's no trophies for these little bitty things that you just get to brag to other little bitty businesses about, you just realize I don't need none of these trophies. Let me just keep building a great kid. Like I realized, I'll tell you something funny with my daughter. I would say, oh, look, she can say this. And people who had kids, they were like, okay, my 4 kids have been doing that.
she should say this, right? She
Yeah,
should
you're
be
like,
doing
and then
that.
you realize, like, let me stop saying this because all my friends, they got kids already. I'm the latest one. I had a kid at 43, my
Oh
first
God,
child, right?
you're doomed.
So it's like, so they're like, my grandbaby does that. But that's how we sound when we talk about our 6-figure business, our 7, like to a real business owner. They're looking at you like, what are you talking about? Like, you're happy about this? Like, so moral of the
And I
story,
think that
give it a
perspective,
chance
right?
to grow up.
Yeah. And that perspective is important because I think I always talk about I want bumpers in my gutters so that I don't fall off either side. I want the ambition, but I want the reality.
Yep.
You
Yeah,
want the
100%.
success, you want the goals, but the reality check absolutely, absolutely helps.
Yeah,
The
100%. You know,
the way
and
that I learned some of this was about sales, because to your point, getting on that one podcast, and people put that much emphasis on every sale because they think every sale is the end all and be all. And there's, oh my God, they said no to me. And one of my mentors said, every single person who drove past McDonald's on their way home from work today without going through the drive-through said no to McDonald's. Do you
100%.
think McDonald's cares? Right?
Nope.
No.
And from the guy who sent 400,000 emails last year, 99% of them told me no.
Right.
And I don't care. Guess what? I got paid for those 10,000 meetings we set. So watch who you measure yourself against, set your own standard. One of the biggest pet peeves is when someone says, well, what's the average number of pitches I need to send in order to get booked? My question is, do you think you're average? And they always say, no. Okay, so why does the average matter? Set your own standard and then set your own benchmark. Send a bunch of pitches and find out what your numbers are on your topic for your audience, and then see if you can improve upon that, right? You got to do enough for long enough. And if you don't believe you're average, why do the average numbers work? Just go.
Yeah.
Just
Well,
go and be great.
and what you've done with PitchDB is made it all possible. Made it all possible, because it used to be a nightmare. Now
100%. I mean, you used to have to go to each individual website of a podcaster, look up their contact page, do that. Or you went on a podcast matching site where they would say they will match you with podcasts, but you only have access to the podcast that joined that site
that are
also.
also on the site.
So if they're not on that site, you can't, so those are like dating sites or speaking gig dating sites.
And I mean,
where
and all these
we tried to build a
places
phone book.
have, right, and all these places have their use in the marketplace.
Yeah. We wanted to build a phone book instead of the dating site. You remember the old yellow pages phone books, white, had everybody's email, everybody's phone number, first and last name, your address, everything was in there, right? That's what PitchDB is. It's the phone book for speaking gigs, podcasts, conferences, press opportunities. It's the phone book for that. It's not a dating site. The people that are on there, they're not specifically looking for Erin Marcus or Ron Story. But if you reach out to them, they just may be that day. Nice. Right? So that's how we look at it.
Awesome. Well, you're awesome. I love chatting with you and all of your insights and information. And it's this mixture of drive and detachment.
Yep.
Right. And I think that you have to have the drive, because otherwise you don't do enough work. But if you don't have the detachment of from each and every step, you're just gonna make yourself crazy.
100%. And that's the one thing that we know. Your brand is forever. You're going to constantly be building your brand. So you should be going on as many podcasts as you can, because you're constantly introducing yourself to a new audience. And as long as you know that nobody's coming to save you, you'll take it upon yourself to be a self-promoter, right? Absolutely. So promote yourself, because there's no guarantee Erin's going to have you on her podcast. And even if she does, you still need to take that video, run some ads to it on YouTube, and promote yourself.
Love it.
Even after you go on the show, promote yourself.
Promote yourself. Absolutely. If people want to continue this conversation with you and learn more about you and learn more about PitchDB, what is the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Yep, they should go to www.pitchdb.com. I'm sure Erin's going to put a link in the bio of this podcast. And if you use Erin's link, you'll get 20% off of our listed price. So if you go directly to the website, you won't get the discount. So I'm telling you, use her link.
Use the link. We'll put it in there.
It's the best way to get the 20% off discount. And yeah, I'm glad that you had me on as a guest.
You're awesome. And so much fun. Love it, love it, love it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Ready Yet podcast. I truly enjoy bringing these stories of success and inspiration to you. Please join us in our mission to empower entrepreneurs to be in charge of their businesses and in charge of their lives by sharing this with anyone you know who would benefit from our tactical and motivating advice, leaving us a review, and letting us know if there are any particular topics you would really appreciate hearing about. See you next time.